Do I need to do something for guests to be added, or they will be added automatically?
Yeah, I can see it says that right there that it's notifying your viewers, your followers that you are going live.
Okay, sending the notification. Okay, good. I'm new at this. It's my second time going live on Instagram, so I have my technical assistant here in the house, my daughter, and welcome to this evening's live broadcast. So our first viewer has chimed in, our second or third, and welcome. We're really excited and thrilled about the broadcast today. This is the first in what will be a series of 3 per week that we're going to do, and then eventually we'll scale it down to 2 per week that we'll do to sustain and maintain a conversation around us becoming more conscious as these changes are happening in our world, and how it is that we can position ourselves in such a way that we actually are contributing to the creation of a better world. All right, we're in the process right now of some major changes on our planet, as some of us are probably recognizing that a lot of changes are occurring around the world. For those who don't know, my name is Dr. Harry Benjamin. I am a transformational teacher, speaker, life coach. I'm a Jamaican American, and I currently reside in Lagos, Nigeria, where I'm speaking to you from. And we're in Lagos, Nigeria, as many parts of the world are currently. We're on what's known as a lockdown, which is allowing for us to have a period where we minimize the circulation of the coronavirus or COVID-19 that's been happening in different parts of the world. As we're doing this broadcast today, this first one, I would say that the COVID virus is pretty much going to be behind us very soon. So that phase is coming to an end. And our conversation really has to start to be, what is life going to be like as these changes have occurred? And, there are changes that are happening. I've been speaking to friends, in different parts of the world. I spoke to a friend in New York yesterday, and by chat. I chatted with a friend in New York, and he was sharing with me the challenging situation there, and that he actually lost 2 friends. 2 friends of his transitioned during this particular period as they are grappling and dealing with the changes associated with the virus. So what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen, is something real. It's something authentic. It's not just because it may not be in your particular neighborhood, but we're definitely dealing with something that's of a challenge. As we are grappling with that, I spoke to other friends. I spoke to a friend today by a chat, and he spoke about, for the first time in years, he's been able to rest between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock and actually sleep during that time. So there are a lot of this happening in the world right now, where a lot of changes are occurring. A lot is going on. So this evening, my goal, ladies and gentlemen, is to bring some sense of clarity to this discussion as a beginning. To preempt you this coming Thursday, and I'll mention it again as we have more viewers join us. But on this coming Thursday, we're going to have another talk at Thursday, same time, and Sunday, another talk, same time, 8 o'clock in Nigeria, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, depending on where in the world you are. Just note your time zone. We're going to have an interview with Dr. Joshua Awesome, who is a stress reduction specialist and learning and development executive management coach. Sits on many different boards, the Learning Institute, and so forth. I'll tell you more about him coming up, and we'll advertise it for you and your family and friends to come and listen to the interview. And the title for that interview is A Crisis, Good or Bad? That's the title for that interview. But today, what we're talking about is, what's the meaning of this crisis? What is the meaning of this crisis? And ladies and gentlemen, one of the first things I want to emphasize is that meaning is something that we give to something. A situation or a circumstance in and of itself doesn't have an inherent meaning per se. It is the meaning that we are going to ascribe to a circumstance or a situation that gives it meaning. And one of the things that's been happening, especially since this has come up, is that a lot of people are going through a lot of worry, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, that's associated with the changes that are happening. Some of that is coming from the idea of people, who may have the risk of passing away, leaving the planet. That's creating some level of anxiety. Also, what's causing some level of anxiety is that some people have lost their jobs. Some people's businesses have been scaled down and some have been closed, due to the lockdown in several countries. And it's resulting in affecting people's livelihoods. And then it raises the question, in our minds, how am I going to make it as these changes are happening around us? And to really help us to answer that question, I want to first give us some idea of how to start to handle the idea of worry. The idea of worry. Worry is something that we do to ourselves. It's not a situation that makes us worry. It is our relationship with the situation that causes worry. So a situation on its own does not cause worry. What causes worry is our relationship with the situation. And if you could send some chats. If you guys are hearing me, put some messages in the chat just to make sure that you're hearing me clearly. I see a number of people online, but just to make sure that we're hearing clearly, and send messages to friends and family so they could join us for this discussion. So the first thing I want to do is to take on the idea of worry. I want to quickly change my screen around, and for us to look at this chart, I'm going to just describe the whole idea of worry, right? Because worry begins with an issue, okay? An issue. So whatever the issue is, in most people's mind right now, the biggest issue is COVID-19, and it's affecting you in one way or the other. And there are many different issues that we have in our life. It could be money, it could be different things that you are concerned about. So to get out of any issue, whether it's COVID-19 or something else, there are two ways out of it. Two ways out of it, right? Either you can do something about it, so you'd say, yes, I can do something about it. The other way out of it is, no, I cannot do something about it. If yes, you can do something about it, then go ahead. Get your gloves. We'll discuss a bit of that. Wash your hands. Do all the various things you can do. So why worry? If you can do something, why worry? No point. It's a waste of time. If you do not worry, it leads to peace of mind, right? Peace of mind. So yes, you can do something about it. If you can, why worry? Therefore, you'll have peace of mind. No, you can't do something about it, right? Why worry? Because there's nothing you can do. Can you stop it from coming into your area? No. But you could wash your hands. So look at that chart. Whatever the issue is, money, whatever it may be, COVID-19, no, I cannot do something. Right? Why worry? No point. If you don't worry, it leads to what? Peace of mind. COVID-19 or money or relationships, whatever that may be, yes, I can do something about it. Why worry? It leads you to a peace of mind. So whichever way you take it, peace of mind is the outcome when you relieve yourself of worry. So let's get back to the discussion at hand right now to talk about what's the meaning of this crisis. What's the meaning of this crisis? So the crisis itself, it doesn't have a meaning except for the meaning that we ascribe to it. And I want to take us back to a bit of history, looking at what has been happening over time. And if we look at life, if we just look at life in segments, right? Just go with me on a journey here and let's look at life in segments. If we go back to maybe 1000 AD to 1300 AD, we were going through what's called the medieval times. Prior to that was what we call the Dark Ages, which was a very difficult time for human beings on the planet. During the medieval times, there were a lot of, crazy things that happened at the time where people would, conquer other nations and be killing people and doing some really gruesome things on the planet. But even with all of that was going on from one human group to another, we progressed from the medieval times into about 1500 AD, where the Renaissance era kicked in. And then that became a birth of a lot of new ideas and inventions, the train, a lot of industries birthed itself. So a lot of changes took place at that time very quickly. A lot of old systems also fell away. And then that later on gave birth to the industrial age. The Renaissance period, because of all these inventions, all these different changes, it gave birth to the industrial age. And as the industrial age came about, ladies and gentlemen, then that now has led to eventually the technological age, because the global mind, which is pulling all of us together right now, has been born. You know, we are using the global mind. We call it the internet. And the internet is allowing us to be in different countries, different time zones, and we're able to come together in this medium and have a dialogue with one another. And then we are working together now to have a conversation as to what's the meaning of this crisis. What's the meaning of it? So if we look at what's been happening prior to now, prior to this particular season that we have entered into, what's been happening? We have had a world that's been based on a sense of what we could call separation. We have a world that's been based on what's called a sense of separation. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that we had a feeling that our good was separate from us. There was a way, or is a way, that continues to today, where individuals operate from the basis of selfishness, meaning that we take care of our individual self, we take care of our family, and we take care of maybe some very close people to us. But the other people, whether they are in another town or they are in another country, we don't have a sense of concern about those individuals. Our focal point has been for several centuries on the individual's personal self. So our idea of taking care of ourselves is first me, myself, and I, and then some family, then some friends, maybe. But definitely our focus has been, use yourself, your family, your wife, your children. That's been the focal point for us as human beings. Nothing is wrong with that, but that's been the focal point. But what that led to, it led to a world that was developed based on scarcity, based on not enough, based on lack. So we have developed a world over the last several centuries, in fact, millennia, thousands of years now. We created a world that's based on not enough. This world that we have given birth to over the last, let's say, 200 to 250 years, the economy has been based on oil. So oil, which is a non-renewable resource, has been the central pillar of our economies. So that resource, we have seen it as limited. There has always been the exploration and drilling and searching for oil, which became a source of energy, which we have used predominantly to fuel our needs on this planet when it comes to electricity, when it comes to machines, when it comes to things that move around for us to be able to function and exist. So understanding that was the world, or is the world that is coming up to this point. The world based on lack, based on not enough, based on an insufficiency of supply. Now that world is giving way to a different world currently. And I want to emphasize there is a big difference, a huge difference between the world and the planet. Some of you may wonder, how is there a difference between the world and the planet? So there's the world, ladies and gentlemen, and then there's the planet. Now what's the difference between the two? Look at the planet. The planet is the water systems, the ranges, all these various plants and the various things that are produced on the planet, the fauna, the flora. Over the course of time, all of that has been continuously steady, right? If you look at it, there's never been a recession in bananas. There's never been a recession in plantains. There's never been a recession in water systems producing fresh water for us to use and drink. There's never been a recession in the sun shining and providing the rays, which allows for the system of photosynthesis to happen and produce oxygen for us as human beings and other animals that rely on oxygen to exist. So the planet, we've never had a recession in the planet. Now the world, on the other hand, is different from the planet. The world is a set of agreements that we have with each other. Meaning that as human beings, we have agreements about how we live on the planet. One of those agreements is that there has not been enough to go around, which is not true. But we have believed this for centuries, and we have operated with each other based on that belief that we do not have enough. We do not have enough oil, so therefore nations who find it, it becomes a resource that is valuable. We have had an economic system based on demand and supply. So whenever something is in limited supply, the value of it tends to go up if there's a demand for it. That has been the economic system that we've been using for centuries. Now, if we examine those systems, we'll recognize that those systems have served us up to a certain point, but they have had certain deficiencies. They've had certain challenges. One of the things about systems like that is that it leaves some people in a state of poverty. It leaves a lot of people out because it's about who it is that has the resource, who it is that can fight and gather things quicker than the others. So it's always been a fight from one group ahead of the other. One group taking from another group. It started thousands of years ago when one group of villagers would go to another village, plunder that village, take away their resources to try to empower themselves. Today, that may show up as something like a war over oil or something of that nature, and we have had this going on for centuries. Now, that's an agreement. That's not the planet that actually has this going on. It is us as human beings relating to each other in a way that creates this scarcity, lack, and not enough, when all the time there's been an abundance of supply, but we've not had necessarily the technology to extract some of these aspects. For example, today we have the thermal opportunity to provide energy for the entire planet using solar. We can thermally and hydro run the entire planet's electrical needs and power needs using this because the technology is already available. Some people may not want you to be aware of it, but it's already available. So here comes an issue known as COVID-19 that is disrupting these systems in such a way that is making it very clear that these systems are not working. The financial system is now showing that it's not working. Why? Because it's a system that's designed for the few. It's not a system that empowers the majority of people who are on the planet. So as a result, those systems, and two other systems which we have used up to now, which have not been working well, is the health system. In some countries, the health system is for profit, meaning that you are provided health care based on your ability to pay for it. Now, if you think about this, a lot of people in the United States especially have gone bankrupt trying to actually pay for health care. Meaning that the resources that they had to eventually use it and spend it on different tests and different things that people have used and done it for profit. Another area that's for profit on our planet is education. So as these systems served us up to a certain point, we're now at a stage, ladies and gentlemen, where those systems now are falling apart. And here comes COVID-19, which is now showing us that these systems are no longer relevant. These systems are no longer working for us. But that provides us with an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, where we can now institute new systems which have been birthing themselves. There are new financial systems that are coming forth. There are new ways that we are recognizing that healthcare is something that we should make available for everyone. Not healthcare available based on your ability to pay for it, but healthcare that's available to everyone. So here we are at a crux. We're at a crux right now where we have the opportunity to work together and create a world that works for everyone. Which means now that we are going to have to change our narrative. We'll move away from the narrative that we do not have enough, that there's not enough to go around, that there's scarcity, that there's lack. We will be embracing the idea that there's more than enough, that there's abundance. The sun doesn't have a limit on how many rays it pours down onto this planet, right? The water has proven itself to be more than enough to supply all of our needs. The food that's on the planet, ladies and gentlemen, some countries are throwing away loads and loads of food every day, while areas on the planet, people don't have enough to eat. So these areas can be changed. And what's been happening? As I spoke to my friend in New York yesterday, all right? One of the things that was so profound about what he said is that over years, New Yorkers have tended to be quite cold. If anybody's been to New York, it's busy. People hardly talk to one another. and he said that as much as it's been difficult seeing, two of his friends leave and, all of these things happen, as much as that has been difficult, he's never seen the level of compassion by New Yorkers that he's seen today. So what has happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that the crisis, right, as we have it, is birthing compassion. It's causing individuals to slow down and think. Another thing that's been happening, which is so great, excuse me, I'm not supposed to cough, right? They'll come and get me. Get some water. Can I get some tissue to wipe the sweat, because I'm sweating. His air condition is cold, but I'm so enthused and fired up. Aaron, get me something to wipe my forehead. Give me some tissue to wipe some of the sweat off. So guys, I'm fired up and excited, right? Why? The world that we had before, or have current coming up to now, is a world based on separation. It's a world based on fight or flight. It's a world based on, not enough. You trying to echo out or, etch out existence for you and your family. That's the world that we have had up to this point, where, it's the fittest of the fittest that shall survive. That's the world we have had up to this point. But that world led to selfishness. It led to greed. It led to avarice. It led to self-aggrandizement. And those of us who have been on the cycle of acquiring cars and homes and all of these things that we thought as human beings we needed for us to be happy. There's a stage where we thought the way to be happy, ladies and gentlemen, is to get. Bigger house, bigger car, bigger business, bigger offices, and so forth. And we thought that was the way in which we were going to become happy as individuals. Not realizing all this time that our happiness and our peace of mind is something that resides within us, and we really need do nothing to actually have peace and joy. Peace and joy are natural states that more and more of us are coming to realize. And it's not associated with the acquisition of things or possessions. So more people are coming to that realization. As more people are coming to that realization, they're realizing that those things don't fill us. A lot of us have lived a life of fulfillment, not fulfillment, fulfillment. Where, I went that cycle, car, house, relationship, money, millions of dollars in US terms. And I tried to use that to feel a sense of being okay. And then when that fell away from my life experience in terms of the money and the house and the car, and I realized that I could have peace and joy in the valley without these things, I started to learn and understand that peace and joy are from within us and not based on what we acquire. I'll dive into that a bit more as we dive into this first conversation, but this is to bring some clarity to the seeming crisis. What the crisis is helping us to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to bring to our awareness that what we have been attaching ourselves to cannot satisfy. What we've been attaching ourselves to cannot give us a sense of peace and joy. One of the easiest ways to check in with yourself to see where you are. Do you feel any anxiety or worry associated with the changes? Let me use this as an example. Let's say, out of this bottle is peace and joy raining down. Peace and joy is raining down right here. And I'm standing over here. Will peace and joy touch me? No, because it's raining down over here. So what has to happen is that I have to be under where it's raining down. I have to come into alignment with it. And when it starts to rain down on me, then I'll feel that peace and I'll feel that joy. So as human beings, what we have done is we have misaligned ourselves with the true source of our peace and our joy, which comes from within us. It comes from our Creator, but it comes from within us, almost like a wellspring that bubbles itself up. But we have externalized it. We have said, you know what? I can't be happy until I have a bigger house, a bigger car. I can't be happy until I'm married. I can't be happy until I have children. And we have attached our sense of being okay to something external when all this time we can be okay from within. So what we can do is check in with yourself. You have time right now. Most of us, right? Because the world is on pause. The pause button has been set. A lot of us who would normally be in the cycle of, I have to go to work tomorrow. I have to do this. I have to this. All of a sudden, those thoughts are still running, but you can't do those things. It generates a sense of anxiety for some of us initially, but you'll start to soon recognize that you are okay. And as you pause over the next week to 2 weeks, which the world has given us right now, an opportunity to really reflect and start to think about, what have I been doing for the last several years? What have I been doing with my life? Have I just been going, taking care of myself, my family, and my children? What have I really been doing with my life over the last several years? This will give us a chance to pause. So you can check in with yourself. Am I feeling anxious about the future? Am I worried about how am I going to take care of myself, my family, and my children? Are these concerns that you have? And if you have those concerns, which are valid concerns, by the way, what it means is that your focus is on your small sense of self. You're trying to preserve your sense of self, as opposed to asking an empowering question. A question which will free you is to ask, how can I add value in this difficult time? How can I make this situation that we're facing as a world better? What can I do as an individual that will make my community better than what it was before COVID-19 came and showed us that the financial system is not, well, we knew it wasn't working, but more people know now, right? That it's not working. More people are pretty clear right now that, there's the perfect storm. I was speaking to an economist here in Nigeria a few days before the shutdown, and he was just so confused as to what he's on the board of those who are trying to make decisions for the country, and he was in a state of confusion because he says this is a perfect storm of so many different things going wrong at the same time that they cannot figure out what it is that they're supposed to do. So when times like this come about, ladies and gentlemen, what it does is it forces us as human beings to start to go deeper, to think about what is it that we can do to survive, not as individuals, but collectively. Because what COVID-19 has done is put a collective threat to humanity, not an individual threat. If it was individual, it's just them, it's just they, it's over there. It can't get me over here. But all of a sudden, every single individual is at risk. So therefore, because everybody is at risk, what it does is pull us together. So we now have to come together to think about, okay, so how can we survive as human beings? Not how can we survive as Nigerians? Not how can we survive as Americans? Not how can we survive as Chinese? What we'll have to start thinking about is what can we do together to have a world that works for everyone. You could write that down along with the notes I gave you about taking worry out of your mind, because we dealt with worry earlier on this worry chart for those who saw that earlier. But what can you do right now? Yes, we're going to start to have to think about a world that works for everyone. Because we're coming from a world that worked for the few that could fight their way to the top. Those that had the might and the muscle to get to the top. But what about those, who weren't at a level of consciousness to even take care of themselves? As I was speaking to the gentleman who is the economist, and I was sharing with him a philosophy that we're moving into as a world. And I was sharing what I believe is a solution to what problems that we have had are. And I was saying to him that, and great, he's not here to talk to me. Maybe one day we'll do this on Instagram. But I was sharing with him that what we have to do is we have to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. And he was, he wasn't in agreement with that. And I said, okay, and I asked him, he put the question to me and said, why should I work hard, use my money, and take care of somebody who has wasted his time and have 20 children? Which we know that there are some men who have done that in this part of the world and other parts of the world as well, where they have 15, 20 children and they don't have the resources to take care of them. All right? We know that happens. And I said to him, what's this going on here? Okay. All right. So I said to him, ladies and gentlemen, at the time, right? I said to him when we were having a conversation, I said to him, if somebody is mentally incapacitated, right? Mentally incapacitated, they're sitting on the roadside and they're unable to take care of themselves. Should we take care of that individual? He says, yes, because they can't take care of themselves. Okay. So I said, the gentleman that has 20 children, it is his thinking process, his thought process that doesn't have the maturity that your thought process has. So let's say your thought process is here and the gentleman's thought process is here. He can't think any differently. He's thinking that the way he needs to live is to do what he's doing, be fruitful and multiply. And he just does that because his instincts are driving him. He's operating at a level of consciousness that does not give him the choices you have. So because we are at a high level of thinking and consciousness, we have to provide systems that will take care of an individual like that and allow them to take care of their survival needs. So what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have to move away from a world where it's about fight and might. Might rules. It is the strongest that win. We have to mature away from that world because it has proven itself. It leads to greed, it leads to avarice, it leads to self-aggrandizement, and it's a world that obviously has a lot of perils in it. So we are clear though that the world and the planet are different. The planet is not in recession. The planet cannot go into a depression. Only the world can. What is the world? The world is our agreements with each other. We can mature, and we're having this conversation, and more people are having this level of conversation where we're moving away from a world that works for the few to where we can come together and create a world that works for everyone. What does that world look like? Martin Luther King and James L. Carver started to describe that world some years back. All right? And that world is a world that works for everyone, where everyone on the planet, once you're born on the planet, ladies and gentlemen, you're born into food, clothing, and shelter provided by us. We have to mature to where we come to a realization that the children on the planet are our children, not my children and your children and their children and those children, but our children. We have to mature to where we recognize that is our family. So COVID-19 has helped us to realize that whether you have money, you don't have money, whether you're black or you're white, whether you're the king of England, the queen of England, whatever you want to be, it will get you. And will there be a COVID-20? Yes. So what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to recognize that there's a futility in me, myself, and I. It has to be we. It has to be us. It has to be where we're developing and creating a world that when a human being comes onto the planet, they are taken care of. And it begins with us as individuals. So there are some things that you can do. It might sound, big, how can we feed everybody? Yes. Right now in Nigeria, there's been money released to provide food to the less vulnerable. Millions of dollars have been given, dollars, not naira, by Nigerian-owned private companies have been given to the government so that money will be available to provide sustenance to people because of the changes that have happened, because of the collapse in the economic structures that existed. Where was that willingness to provide that money all along? Because the money was there. The money didn't just appear. The money was always there. But where did the willingness come from to provide this? It came from the realization that there's no point in holding on to it because it can't help you right now. So therefore, we're better off creating a world that works for everyone and takes us out of a survival mode of living, where individuals now are starting to live from a higher place of consciousness. So what can you do as an individual to help this effort? Because you have a part to play. You have a part to play, ladies and gentlemen, in us moving forward as human beings on planet Earth. You have a very important part to play. So how can you play a part, or how should you rather be playing your part in helping us as a planet, helping us not as a planet, but as a world to move forward? How can we move us forward? Because COVID-19 is coming to an end soon. Okay? The lockdowns will come to an end soon. The virus will come under control. So we'll be able to move forward as a people. But how are we going to move forward in this particular experience? After we have had this experience, how are we moving forward? And what is your role to play? Well, the first thing that you need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that you need to have your inner sense of peace and joy going on. How does that come about? how do you arrive at that inner sense? Remember earlier on I said, if peace and joy is reigning over here and you're standing here, it can't touch you. But if you're under where it rains, then you'll be able to have access to it, so to speak. Peace and joy comes from within. It's not based on what you have acquired, right? It's not based on the things you own. It's something that comes from within us and bubbles itself up. Mistakes have been made where we have associated with it with things. How can you know if you have those associations? You are anxious, you are worried about the future. You're concerned that how are you going to take care of your family? How are you going to take care of yourself? How are we going to be able to function as a society? Which means that you're asking disempowering questions. Instead, you need to ask, how can I serve? How can I add value? How can I make things better? So instead of me at home worried about, what's going on, how things are going to work, I'm playing a part in helping to bring a conversation as to how we can make things better. And as more of us start to train our minds to say, how can I add? How can I make this a better experience for us? Then we start to add, how can I maybe help a neighbor? Maybe when I'm cooking dinner, I'm going to cook enough so that there's an extra two or three meals that I can give to a family that may not have, quote unquote, enough to take care of themselves, because their consciousness level may not be where yours is. So their consciousness level did not give them the opportunity to go and get the job you have, the business you have, and provide for themselves the way you can because of the difference in level of consciousness. And then we're going to, as we start to do that as individuals, that will expand itself where we're doing that as a community. So the first thing that we need to do as an individual, and that's where we can play a part, is to start to go within and commune. What do I mean with that? Commune. Oil and water cannot commune. If you put oil and water and shake it together, after a while it separates. So to commune, we can commune with the source of peace and joy, which is our spirit. It's our creator, right? We can go within, take time away. We now have a lot of time on our hands. You could take time in the morning to commune. Take time in the night to commune. Maybe take a few minutes during the day to commune. And what your spine starts to happen is that an inner sense of peace and joy starts to bubble up from within you, and you will start to feel more calm. You start to have a clarity mentally. Your emotions will also start to settle down. Your emotions will become purified, meaning that the fear, the doubt, the worry, the anxiety about tomorrow, about the future will start to disintegrate itself. And you're going to feel a sense of equanimity and calm, even though the things are happening around us. Even though situations may not be the way you want them to be, you will start to realize that you feel okay. So that's the first thing that we need to do as individuals. It's the first thing you can do to help the situation. You can commune because you are spirit, soul, and body. You can commune, and in your communion, you will start to have a deeper sense of peace and joy that comes from within and starts to circulate itself in your life experience. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing that we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is that we need community. Online is where we're having our community right now, right? We're people in diverse places. Welcome from South Africa. Welcome from Jamaica. Welcome from the US, from Nigeria, Kenya. We're people from different parts of the world that are tuning in as we begin this conversation. You can start to have this type of conversation. Invite more people. As on Thursday evening, we're going to have Dr. Joshua Awesome, and I'm going to be interviewing him. Is a crisis good or bad? Right? We're going to highlight it. He did a case study on China, a beautiful example of how they're actually getting intuitive hits. They're now starting to position themselves to benefit from the changes that are happening. So, ladies and gentlemen, you will be treated to an outstanding treat of information, a treatise that will absolutely blow your mind. Right? So you have to be intentional to ensure that you're not participating in conversations about conspiracy theories, the end of the world. Yes, the old world is going to end. The world of greed and avarice and selfishness, self-aggrandizement, that world is collapsing right now. But the new world, ladies and gentlemen, that we are creating together. We are creating the world that works for everyone. Not the world that works for some. Not the world that works for a few, but the world that works for who? Everyone. So we're working together, ladies and gentlemen, to create that world. And that's where you come in. How do you begin that process? You as an individual, commune. You go within, cultivate your sense of the awareness of peace and joy. Become rooted in the spirit so that your peace and joy flows. It flows. And then therefore, you are contributing peace and joy to your environment, and you're not concerned and running helter-skelter, worried. Those human beings that you see who are fearful and driven by fear right now, is because they have not become conscious. They are not aware of the source of peace. The source of peace does not come by where you go physically to hang out with friends. It comes from within. And those who have never slowed down and become still and to know the presence of God in their heart and their soul, they are right now agitated, anxious, and worried. They are concerned. They're speaking in terms of fear and doubts and worries. No worries, fine. They're doing that. But ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to this conversation. You're coming into this with a different perspective. Or after this conversation, your perspective has changed to where now you are saying you are imbued with peace. You are imbued with joy, and you're sharing that with others. You're not going to try to get joy and peace from money and things and concern with the broken systems which are falling apart. We are going to create brand new systems based on unity, based on oneness, based on us actually having a world of abundance where we're now going to have food, clothing, and shelter for everyone. That's the world. That's been spoken about in circles. That's the world that's coming forth, where you have food centers all over the world, where people will be able to have food. People will be able to have clothing. People will be able to have shelter. Once you're born on the planet, that's a given. I'll talk as to why we're doing that towards the end, when I'm getting to wrapping this up. But the first thing you can do is commune. The second thing is community. Community. We're having a great communion here together, right? We're building a community around the unity of life. We're now talking about how we can make the world better. So that type of conversation is not about, this coming, that, thinking that we have to wait on someone to ride in the cloud with, on a horse and then save us from all of this mess. That type of language is childish. Those are children who speak in those terms. Those of us who are more mature, don't wrestle with them. Don't fight with them about those conversations because they're children. If your children are playing and having fun and you're not going to be upset with your children for having childish conversations and playing and doing childish things. You will embrace your children, love your children, take care of your children. And that's what we have to do with some of our brothers and our sisters. They are having conversations right now which are not adding value to the changes that need to take place. But fine, we can have compassion. We can understand, okay, that's what they have to deal with right now, and fine, that's cool. If that's where they want to, invest their time, that's okay. Those of us who are more conscious, more aware, we're now working on creating a world that will take care of them, take care of all of us, and what will happen as a result of this? This is when compassion births itself by means of you and I. So we're taking care of those who cannot take care of themselves mentally or emotionally. They are not mentally strong, emotionally strong enough to take care of themselves. So you have to be the one who does this on their behalf. Because they're not in a place where they can do it for themselves. In Nigeria, we say, are we together? Right? So what does that allow for? When we have come together now and eliminated survival needs, when people are no longer running to survive, meaning that you're not going to work to pay your bills only. You're not going to work just to be able to survive and find a way to etch out an existence on this planet. You are now able to start to birth your gifts. One of the things about us as beings, we don't have the luxury of doing nothing. The nature of a plant, if you look at a plant that grows, a plant that's growing, if you look at it now, you look at the plant, you can see it, nothing is happening. You cannot see it change, it's not moving, it just looks like it's still and at peace and at quiet. You go away for a few weeks and you come back, wow, the plant became bigger. But the growth is so delicate, so gentle, it's so refined, ladies and gentlemen, that when that happens, We don't see it, but it's growing. The cells are multiplying. It's pulling up water from the soil. And so it is that we, ladies and gentlemen, are designed to express our gifts, our talents, and our capacities. So the idea, some people will say, well, if you take care of somebody's, food, clothing, and shelter, they become lazy. You see, that's a level of consciousness. But after a while, the life in them starts to birth gifts, talents, ideas, starts to nudge them, push them forward to start to do greater things with their lives. But when we're buried in survival needs, when individuals are caught up in how can I pay my rent, get food, take care of bills, it does not allow for them to be able to birth their gifts and their talents. So what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to provide an environment where when a human being comes onto the planet, they are able to birth their gifts. They are able to birth their talents. They can release their capacity because it's the energy that they have is not being siphoned off into how am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to take care of my children? How am I going to provide food and clothing and shelter? As we work together and we collectively provide this, ladies and gentlemen, and the resources are there. Don't let anybody let you believe. Money doesn't disappear with COVID-19. All the money is still there. It just needs to be circulated. Okay? So, the systems for that to happen will be put in place, and we're moving in that direction, and more of these conversations will happen, and we're not going to get into the fear-driven based conversation. Those lower frequencies of human living where people are fearful and doubtful and worried. That's not you. That's not here. That's not now. You are of the group that's actually thinking about how we can make the world better. How can we add value? We're here serving each other this evening. On Thursday, again, Dr. Joshua Awesome, we're coming together to serve you, right? Reach out to more people so that more people can be a part of a conversation that's taking us to a higher level. Not conversations that's trying to hold us and hold on to the world that's never worked for thousands upon thousands of years. That world needs to fall away. That world is falling away. It's become disrupted. There's actually a lot of systems that are falling apart and falling falling apart, right? University students had to be sent home. All of the stuff associated with the school loan system that they've been having because they have been, tying down people to actually pay student loans. There are students who they will never be able to pay back the student loan that they paid for the university education that they got. And they got an education, which now today, the society doesn't have a role to fit the education that they got. So they got a loan, $50,000, $100,000. They became educated in a system that no longer has a job for that education. There are many individuals that graduate with student loans and there's no job to take them. How are they going? So they're starting out life bankrupt. So that system, ladies and gentlemen, is not broken. It's decadent. It's decadent. What does decadent mean? It's out of cadence. It's out of harmony with the fundamentals of this universe. So we're here now together having this conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, I am not the only one that you're going to hear this type of conversation from. There are more and more people who are waking up and becoming conscious and aware and alert and alive to the truth of ourselves and are being inspired for us to come together, ladies and gentlemen, and create a world that works for everyone. What is the goal? 3 things that you need to do as individuals. 3 things. Just 3 simple things. First, commune. In the morning, in the night, maybe even during the day. Take time to go within. Make that connection. Take time to reflect, to introspect. Don't just extrospect. Don't just be watching CNN, catching news and reading. Do a little bit of that, very small amount, just to keep yourself up to date with what's happening. But the most important thing is to go introspect. What have I been doing for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years with my life? Have I been going like a robot day in, day out, just trying to take care of myself and my family? Start to really go inside. And as you go inside, then you're going to be able to start to ask the question, why am I here? What is my purpose? Creator, why was I created? What is mine to do? How can I serve? That's a very important question to ask. The servant of many becomes great. So ask the question of your Creator. How can I serve? What is mine to do? What can I do to add value in this time of human history when so much is going on and so much is needed for us to be able to actually move humanity to another level? Right? What it is that I can do to serve, ladies and gentlemen. You start to ask that question. And then you join in now with becoming a part of community. So the first thing is you go within, introspect, get clarity. Right? The second thing is you're in community with people who are having high-minded conversations. Not people who are talking about fears and doubts and worries and destruction and, that type of person. You want to minimize your... Don't have those conversations. Not minimize. Don't have them. All right? Leave that type of conversation alone. Move away from conspiracy theories. Focus on what can we do to create a better world. You want to be a part of harbingering, bringing into being a better world than what we've had before. The world of selfishness, greed, avarice is falling apart, falling away. The world of abundance, prosperity, shared prosperity is now birthing itself, and you have an opportunity to be a part of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll seek to close. Okay. All right, so there was a pause there, but I'll seek to close and wrap up with this, ladies and gentlemen. In the forest that we see on the planet, right? The forest that we see on the planet, underneath each great forest are seed pods. Seed pods that contain seeds for the next generation of the forest. Meaning that those seeds are for plants that will grow in the next generation, the next iteration of the forest. The interesting thing about those seeds, the pod that contains those seeds, the pod will not break open until there's a forest fire. Ladies and gentlemen, there's an animal called the aphid. It will live on a plant and will eat all the leaves. And when it's eating all the leaves and there's no more leaves for it to eat, that aphid then grows wings, but it will not grow the wings until the food runs out. It's when the food runs out that it grows wings and it flies, ladies and gentlemen, to the next food source and continues to live. Human beings, that's where we're at right now. We're having a forest fire going on worldwide. We're having a situation where the aphid, the life of human beings, is threatened. It is during those moments that human beings will seek to come together and say, okay, what can we do to make this work for everyone? That's the time we're in. And you have a part to play in working together to create a world that works for the highest and best in each and every one of us. That's the meaning of this crisis, ladies and gentlemen. How can we come together and create a better world? Use these opportunities, use these circumstances, use these situations, use the time you have to go within. Gain clarity. What is your purpose? Why are you here? What are you here to do? Because when you start to ask that question, you're not worried about food and clothing and shelter. But if you're sitting down trying to figure out how you're going to take care of you, your family, and that's your focal point, then you're going to invite worry. But if instead you change your perspective and say, how can I serve? How can I add value? How can I make this world a better place? Worry starts to fall away from you because you're no longer thinking about your little self. You're thinking about how you can bring ideas that can actually be born into this particular season and create a better world for us to all live in together. Ladies and gentlemen, man, I know I've spoken for a while. I'm not even sure how long I've been on the broadcast. Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't plan to speak for an hour, but you know how it can be. So I'm truly grateful, truly thankful for your time this evening, for every single one of you that put your ear to listen to us today. I'm so grateful, so thankful to you. And you have a part to play, ladies and gentlemen, in creating a better world so that we can come together and create a world that works for the highest and best in each and every one of us. That's the time that we're in. That's the world that we're working together to create. And thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for the time you're going to use to meditate, the time you're going to use to pray affirmatively and declare for a world that works for the highest and best in each and every one of us, man. Thank you so much again, once again for time. Invite your friends, invite family. Thursday evening, 8 o'clock, Dr. Joshua Awesome. We're going to interview him. And on Sunday at 8 o'clock, we'll have another conversation. And we're going to seek to have a panel as we start to create a conversation that will help us to come up to a higher level of consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you. I will see you at the top of life. You're already there. We just need to catch up consciously. All right, bye for now. Ooh.